Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Connections, our bi-monthly, uh, or bi-monthly when we can, venue for you to ask your questions about the stock market to us, the analysts of MyTrade and Abacus Securities. Today, I am Elizabeth Santiago. I'm joined by,
Hi, I'm Rainier, and I'm one of the analysts covering consumer and the energy stocks.
and we are joined online by our technical analyst.
Hi, Isaiah. Yeah, let me know what charts you want to look at. I'll share with you some of the charts that I've been looking at as well. Thank you.
Okay, so feel free to send in your questions in the chat box. But while we're waiting for questions, I see, kumusta? What's your reading on the market today and in the past few days?
Yeah, so the index. Let's see if we can see the index here. Can you share the? Can you see me? But can you share the chart of the index here? It's been pulling back. It's been trading for a few weeks now above the this channel that began closer to November. So some profit taking. The oscillator is also rolling over. I think it would be opportunity to probably to buy if you haven't already sold at the top of the channel to um, look to add fund like look to add exposure to equities at about maybe 7,000. If it goes lower to about I don't know about to like 6,900, I think that would still be an opportunity to add to the market. So yeah, that's what I've been looking at.
That's quite a pullback, I see. So, do you recommend just waiting at that point, or is it better to cut some positions now and just wait it out?
Siguro um, the past the ones that were trading were overbought. You probably already lightened on those ones. If it breaks some names, if they break the 50-day, maybe you also want to lighten, but you will be looking to probably buy back lower.
Okay,
The
thanks.
Abacus preferred names. Yeah.
Okay, so again, while waiting for your questions, may for the past few days, we've already been seeing some of the earnings reports from some of the companies, and we will likely see that accelerate or we'll likely see more reports come in the next 2 weeks. I think we have a question already from Julius Manalo. What is your outlook for the telecom industry, Converge, Glow, Tel, and Dito? We don't really cover Dito. For as for Converge, we're not very positive on it, mainly because the earnings of the past few quarters have been coming from non-core or below-the-line items. So we don't think the stellar earnings performance of last quarter and even the quarter before that can be sustained. We'll probably see. Uh, we'll probably they recently declared a dividend. Um, However, the yield is not as right. It's more of a mediocre yield considering the share price already of Converge and considering that they will have more capex in uh, going forward. The we don't see any improvement in that yield going forward for Globe and Tel. Um, that would be the opposite in terms of where their capex is going. So they've already spent a lot of their capex in the past, and we expect this to die to not necessarily die down, but to be diminishing over the next few quarters. So this will sort of put less pressure on their dividend. So uh, yun. For Globe, we are expect there's been some news lately that the CEO is expected to step down next year, and there will be some change. There will be some changing of the guards. in April, I think, and the incoming or the one that has been um, announced as the replacement for Mr. Ku of Globe is coming from FGMC industry. His history has been um, so coming from an entirely different industry. We've yet to see if this can be translated. His stellar performance in, I think, Unilever can be translated into the telco industry. So there may be some risk there, which may be why you're seeing some correction in Globe's price, and also maybe the market is now uh, um, lessening their expectation of the IPO of Mint, or are now seeing that the IPO of Mint may not be as soon as, or as soon as they've been expecting lately. Since, as we also remember, there was some news that um, Mint was able to get an international partner in order to expand their growing loans business. Um, that involved quite a lot of funding coming into their books, so there's less pressure for Mint to IPO. So the impact on that on Globe as well, you're probably seeing in the past few days in the share price performance. Meanwhile, for Tel, their equivalent of fintech, what's the name?
Maya.
Maya, sorry. Things are actually looking up. They are expecting to break even by the end of this year, which is earlier than what we and probably the rest of the market anticipated. So that's our overview of the telecom industry. I hope that suffices or that answered your question, Julius. And while we're waiting for other questions, Rainier, anything interesting in the consumer space?
Okay. Although I just want to add what you said about Converge, that its dividend is still about 1% or a shade above 1% compared to the likes of Globe and Tel, which have about a yield of 4 to 5%. So that's why the attractiveness of Globe and Tel are more precise, or more apparent compared to Converge. So moving on to the consumer space, so we had two names that announced earnings. So first we have Robinson's Retail, or RHI, and then Wilcon, both of which after they announced their earnings have plummeted. So indicating mostly their performance, especially for Wilcon. Wilcon did announce a much worse uh, earnings results over the past few days. Third quarter alone dipped 33% in terms of net income, so it was at a steeper decline compared to the first half. That's why share prices for Wilcon has been really dropping, and it might take a while before it could point back up. And even management alone, even management expects that the third quarter might not yet be the bottom for Wilcon. So uh, really not the time to touch Wilcon at the moment. And if you still have Wilcon, it might be time to take profits or even cut your positions. Then for RHI, they did announce results, but that uh, to make it short, it was in line with expectations. But some snippets of it, it also clarifies the weakness of Wilcon, since its home improvement category was also weak, similar to Wilcon, while the essential side was carrying the load for Robinson's growth, offsetting the weakness of the discretionary side, which is the DIY, specialty, and the department store. So, really, a continuation of the narrative in the first half of 2024, moving and influencing the third quarter, that discretionary or consumer spending on discretionary items remains to be weak.
Okay, I think we lost IC, so while we're trying to get him back, There were also several banks who have reported their earnings both this week and last week. We saw fairly good performance from both BPI and BDO. Uh, Metrobank reported their earnings yesterday as well, although this still showed solid growth of around 12% for the 9 months. This was less than what we were expecting. Um, we are starting to see some NIM compression or net interest margin compression from the banks. This is coming from several reasons. So for for Metrobank particularly, it's from um, they are their cost of funding has increased since they are in the past they've relied on some forex swaps in order to reduce their reliance on low cost fund on deposits and other forms or in wholesale funding, which in the past was quite high because interest rates were rising. They have done away with that now and has been forced or pushed to move from these forest swaps into more deposit funding, which is more costly, but they are anticipating in the next few quarters that this will start to go down as interest rates start to go down. So that's been pressuring their margins. We are seeing less of that from the other big three banks. For BPI, they are changing or not really changing, but they are focusing more on growing their consumer loan book rather than their corporate loan book. And consumer loans tend to have higher yields, and this has been so far paying off for them. They've even been able to actually slightly expand their NIMs compared to the previous quarter. And we have a related question from Sheng Lagno. Insights at East West. East West reported their earnings just earlier this lunchtime. Um, their 9 months earnings, I think this grew about 20%, but this was boosted by trading gains. So they probably took advantage of the decline in interest rates and sold some securities, which if we take that trading gain away, their net income for the 9 months would have been a bit flat or would have seen a very small decline, I think below a little about -1 or 2%. But still, net interest margins net interest income for the 9 months is still quite growing quite strong. I think this is up also 20 or 22%. This is still owing to the fact that they are a consumer focused bank and they have been able to keep their NIMs or net interest margin steady at 8.1%, which is among the of the major listed banks. So we are waiting for full financials since if we take away the trading gain that they recognized in the third quarter numbers are actually showing a decline. So we want to see more color on that. So we have to wait until they show or disclose their full FS so we can see exactly where the decline is coming from if we take away those trading gains. And next question or maybe we want to see some charts from IC. Uh, take your pick, IC. We discussed East West, the big three banks, Chime and Wilcon.
And coincidentally, I was going to show East West then. So yeah, this is East West. We showed this a few times in the MyTrade map on Facebook. It recently broke out. Well, not so recent, but back in late September, it broke out from a classical bullish falling wedge. Has been able to hold above the 50-day moving average. Gives a rough technical target of at least 11 pesos. So the the ascending channel has been established for some time now, almost a year. So it looks like it's set to test about 11 pesos in the short term. So that's East West. Yeah.
Yes, so just want to add, no, even before we take a look at their full financials, I have a feeling that the third quarter decline in profit was mostly due to higher provisioning, since they are seeing very strong loan growth. And as you take on more loans, you're required to do provisioning upfront. So that might be one of the drivers. Um, Maybe we can move on to another question.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, we can take on a question from RG Carambas. Any news on Macro Asia or still waiting for earnings report? Mac has been one of the stronger names over the past month or so. It has reached about 7 plus, and it's really impressive how it has rallied, and this is mostly coming from strong earnings reports. Actually, over the past quarters, it has reached pre-pandemic levels. It has outgrown Cebu Pacific in terms of the recovery into the pre-pandemic numbers. So Macro Asia basically now is uh, moving above the numbers, the pre-pandemic numbers. Really, the recovery has been stronger for them. I think even last year, if weren't for some factors, Macro Asia would have already been ahead, and they have been ahead. Um, Basically, what we expect for third quarter is the continued year-on-year improvements, with travel really taking another leap this year compared to the previous year. That's why it has reached about 7 plus now, and momentum is still intact, as IC will share later. And yes, we are still awaiting earnings report that should be out in the next 2 weeks or so. So for Mac, I guess IC you can better provide a technical picture.
Yeah, sure. So for Macro Asia, has been, as like Rainier said, it's been very strong stock. Personally, for me, I'm hopeful that it can finally drop closer to say a 6 pesos or 22 cents. Um, in the shorter term, though, it may also test this lower end of the channel, and hopefully, for more short-term traders, if it can consolidate up until mga six pesos 90 cents, maybe it can break out. But for me, I'm really hoping it can drop a bit lower, so positions can be initiated or added. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, IC. I think we can move on. Next, from Annie Lin, insights on FCG and nickel. FCG has also been another hot name. It has rallied above its IPO price, closing in on even 90 cents, but I think it dipped earlier. But in terms of earnings, FCG, especially if you compare it 2 years, 2 to 3 years ago, it has grown a lot. Uh, Although it has faced some challenges in terms of raw material prices affecting its gross margins, uh, wherein its net income has been far less compared to what we were expecting. But revenues, basically top line for FCG, has been pretty impressive over the past years. This is driven by Angel's Pizza, and recently they did change their name from Figaro Coffee to Figaro Concepts, or I forget which name is that. Since they also announced that they are establishing I think some production line in an ecozone, so that is something to watch out for, and that's why I think the market is showing some premium for FCG, that they are focusing to another food segment apart outside of Angel's Pizza, since its other brands have been less attractive compared to Angel's Pizza. So currently, we still remain positive on FCG, especially on their expansion, and we are closely looking at what will transpire with their disclosure on the recent uh, development on the on that production line. Then best can you take on nickel?
Um, okay, so for nickel, um, I think recently there was some news that Indonesia will be importing more nickel ore from the Philippines again. So that could actually positive for nickel. However, um, nickel is also one of nickel's markets. I believe is China, and we are the the weakness in China's economy is negative for that. So we are recommending not to sell nickel on strength. Perhaps if that if we may see if we see a good third quarter from them from in the next when they announce in the next few weeks. However, we are still expecting nickel to be deleted from the index by February next year. So uh, not really a good idea to get into that stock anytime soon. Maybe a technical outlook for both.
So as far as nickel is concerned, like Beth said, it doesn't look well. Beth said on the fundamental front, but this the no pattern has yet to appear. The range still looks very wide. At best, could be um, some kind of maybe an inverted head and shoulder in the very long term, but it looks like will still take much more time. So that's the technicals on nickel. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, IC.
Welcome.
From is that the that latest one? Real McCoy.
Yeah.
That's the Filipino version of Real McCoy. Insights for Union Bank Monday and DRC. So Union Bank also is one of the banks that reported their earnings um, last week. No, last Monday. Um, they are going to have their briefing on next Monday, so we'll have more details after next week. But we saw a very good performance in terms of profits for the third quarter. Uh, in net income grew 100+%. Um, this is on stronger net interest income growth because their net interest margins are still on the uh, on are still expanding. This is still owing to their acquisition of the Citibank portfolio 2021 ish. I think, if I'm not mistaken, late 2021. Anyway, so they took on the portfolio of the consumer portfolio of Citibank. This changed Union Bank's loan focus from previously having more corporate and commercial loans to being predominantly a consumer bank. 57% of their loans are now in retail, so that and retail loans have a higher yield, so this pushed up their margins to 5 point I think 5.7 or 5.9. That's probably the second highest among the major listed banks after East West Bank. Um, we are also seeing decline in their OPEX, so that acquisition of Citibank resulted in very high operating costs related to the integration for over a year. So we are past that now. So we are seeing the opposite effect from their OPEX, which declined 6%. But in the past few quarters, Union Bank saw the need to provide for significant losses in their digital banking arm, Union Digital. They were experimenting in terms of broadening their market for the loans that their Union Digital subsidiary was catering to, and um, uh, that resulted in the need for providing for more provision for losses, and resulted in losses at the Union Digital level, which brought down their earnings in the past few quarters. But they are expecting this to improve come 2025. We're still seeing some provisions for the Union Digital segment in the third quarter, but we do expect that to be done by the end of this year. So by next year, we will see a more pronounced effect of that um, higher NIM, higher consumer loan segment, not just from the uh, well, Union Digital is part of that consumer loan segment for Union Bank, but the more profitable one is actually more significant in terms of size. So that Citibank portfolio, they also have City Savings, um, and also they also have the consumer segment of their parent bank. So those are still quite profitable, and it's only the Union Digital part that was dragging earnings in the past quarter or two. So we will see we're already seeing some significant improvement in the third quarter. We will see more of that in the fourth and in 2025. I've talked for a long time. Sorry. Rainer, Fonda, and URC.
Okay, for Monday and URC, first take on URC since URC is, I think, has been highlighted more frequently compared to Monday. But for URC, in terms of its Q3 numbers, they are expected to probably announce by late next week. And our expectation for it is for it to be still to see some growth in terms of its margins expanding about 150 to 200 basis points. So that should be positive for URC. But they are expecting some weakness in terms of its sugar business, which is composed of about a third of overall URC. And that may offset some of the margin gains on their international or the branded food segment, both on domestic and international. Um, that's and apart from that, it is expecting some margin compression in 2025 because they are dealing with high raw material prices for cocoa and coffee that would impact 2025 because much of their raw materials were already locked in for the year. That's why they are still safe at the moment. But come 2025, they are likely to be hit. That will impact their bottom line. So at current levels, we don't think it is the right time to add URC, and especially at current prices, we would prefer Monde because Monde, on the other hand, it is also seeing improvements in its gross margins about 400 basis points, which is higher than URC. And what we expect moving forward is for Monde to be able to sustain this, that will put its profits that will probably outperform expectations, uh, driven by its branded food segment, and this is likely to offset the weakness in the meat alternative segment. So at current levels, Monde is still attractive and has the better earnings and probably overall outlook compared to URC, not only for this year, but also for next year. That's why our preference is on Monde compared to URC. So I see. Maybe you can share some of the names here.
Sure, sure. I've been looking at Union Bank. Of the charts, Union Bank is working on about a 6 month long bullish reversal. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to hold above this anchored VWAP. It pierced right back through, but there's still some support here at, let me just check, 37 pesos and 20 cents. So hopefully it's still working on something like a higher low consolidation before it moves higher. And the oscillator on the lower panel here has already turned bullish. It's just a bit of consolidation now. So those are the bullish signals from the technicals, naman. So yeah,
And okay. So I think we take the last question since it's already 4 p.m. Uh, Anilin, can you discuss the technicals of, oh no, of FCG? But we lost our technical
Yeah.
analyst.
Sorry for that. Just wait. I think we can wait for IC to tune back in to
Meanwhile,
provide some insights on the technicals.
meanwhile, can you provide some insight on LD? For MY and Tech, fortunately, we haven't really looked at both in a while, so we'll have to get back to you on that. But do you have
Yeah.
any insights on LD?
For all day, might be a difficult time if you're still holding on to all day, since in terms of its earnings, not really worth mentioning because it has been more or less flat, similar to the other supermarkets. Although it might not be a comparable, since All Day is really smaller compared to the likes of Pure Gold or RHI and even the SMs. So we had a lot of expectations for All Day in terms of its growth, but they weren't able to capitalize on that. That's why the hype back then during its IPO has now fizzled and has been trailing way below its IPO price, mainly because it hasn't really panned out for all this. So not yet time to uh, look into that. So hello, IC. Welcome back.
Uh,
Hello,
I
hello,
see
hello. Some
we
technical
can probably
difficulties now.
take the last question for today,
Yeah.
technicals of FCG from Ms. Annie Lin.
Okay, FCG. Let's have a quick look. FCG. Figaro. Let me just load it. Hope you can see. Can you
Video
show the? Oh, no,
concepts.
I have to share the chart. By the way, let's just do a
Oh,
quick one. I got disconnected kanina, so let me just try share the chart quickly. There it is. Joseph, you can hear me. Thank you so much.
Oh, the
There's
chart.
Figaro there. Nice uptrend after a few bit of choppy price action here. Finally broke out in what's this? Early October, early October. So look for the 50-day moving average to act as support. It looks like it can test 1 peso and 3 centavos based on this measured move from the price pattern target. In the longer run, the channel suggests it might be able to make a move towards mga 130. So that's it for FCG technicals.
Wow, 130 IC.
Mm. we'll see.
Wow,
We'll
baka
see.
makarating sa IC.
and no longer and models how. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. I see there are still some other questions in the chat, so we'll have to address those in our Facebook group. If you're not yet a member of our Facebook group, it's my trade map. But you have to be an account holder with MyTrade Philippines. So open your account with us to join that Facebook group and be able to join us in more events like this, and also to be able to be part of our mailing list and receive our daily reports where we discuss most of the stocks that we have questions from in the chat. So, any parting words, Icy?
Just wish everyone good luck and more profits.
Oh yeah, and I think something to take note of. It's going to be an eventful week next week, and I think today and tomorrow. Just a reminder: tomorrow we still have another trading day before the holidays. Although we expect trading to be light, since most will be anticipating the happenings next week, which are the
US elections, for one thing, just a very small, insignificant event. Apart from that, locally, we have the inflation numbers coming out and GDP numbers coming out, MSCI rebalancing coming out, November. Next 2 weeks of November will be quite eventful. Apart from the ones I mentioned, we will have more earnings reports from the different corporates that we have to report. So let's all have a good Halloween in anticipation of the very eventful next month that we have. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and hopefully you'll join us again in the next installment of Beyond Connections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Live.